Hey guys, so this is just a video on how I used to make my settings with my XIM NEXUS controller. So I've been getting a lot of requests for this from the XIM community, and I haven't really been gaming on Nexus lately, mostly because I'm forced to play on controllers with Hall effect thumbsticks, and this is because I play on aim labs a lot, and a lot of these tasks in aim labs, especially things like grid shot, where you're moving your thumbstick around like crazy, it puts a lot of wear on standard potentiometers. So I am forced to game on something that has Hall effect thumbsticks. So I'm kind of stuck on the goalie kick controller, which kind of sucks other than the actual thumbstick mechanism. So let me see if I remembered how to do this. Oh, by the way, if you're not a XIM Nexus user, this is going to be a really boring video, so I suggest switching it to something else. But I wanted to do a video on how I did these settings just so people will always be able to recreate it no matter what. Like what happened in the past is my old codes don't work. So rather than sharing my code of how I made it, I would rather just share a video so anyone could just recreate it. So this video is mainly for the people who want to recreate it and learn a little bit more on why I had things set in a certain way. By the way, there's going to be no gameplay at all in this video. I don't have time. You can see that it's 4 a.m. right now. I ship this controller out tomorrow and I have a busy day ahead of me. So I'm kind of staying up late to do this. But let's get this video started. So I switched to expert editing experience. I'm sure you guys all know that part. Oh, I was already on expert. Let's switch to expert. I always had motion always on, so yeah, I had an on gauge toggle. Um, my sensitivity, I always had my sensitivity set that uh, no matter what, like if I would do a 90-degree movement in the game, it would do, or with my controller, it would do a 90-degree movement. Same thing if I look straight up, it would look to the very top in the game, and I just kind of had it more of a real world thing. I don't know if that ever did anything to my gameplay, but I mean anything faster than that anyways. I wasn't able to do like the small little per pixel micro movements that well. So that's just kind of my philosophy on why I had it set that way. And yeah, that's that. Also, let me go to um, let's see. There's motion curve. Yeah, Y scale. I always had, because of that, since I'm jumping ahead here, I always had Y scale at a, not always in my earlier videos. I believe I had it at 50% or 75% or something, but that's just kind of, this was a little bit more of a later thing that I switched to and I merged to. I had that at 100. Um, let's see. So that was, that covers sensitivity and Y scale. As far as smoothing goes, I always had this go to custom. Now, let me remember if I could, if I might be incorrect on the certain terms over here because it's been a long time since I've been in the smoothing menu. I actually later in my gameplay, I didn't use smoothing at all, but for newer players or people with less stable hands, it could be really, really useful function. So the first thing that I would always do is stability. I have that set to 0. What stability is pretty much a dead zone. So if you move your controller around slowly, it might not pick up any movements. So it would pick up movements at a certain speed. The lower you have the stability, the more twitchy it feels. I like to have it just that it's raw, direct input. If I'm moving it very, very slow and I'm slowly shifting my controller down, it's gonna pick that up and it's just gonna pick up everything. So that's why I have the stability always on 0. So these were the main things with smoothing. In my early days, I believe I had precision set to probably similar to what it is over here. Probably around 60 or so, I would say. But yeah, maybe just leave it over there, or 60. Kind of a heavy smoothing. So yeah, that's what precision is. Precision is the actual smoothing. Response is how quick you leave that smoothing. So if you have your response set to 100, the faster you move your controller around, the more it's going to lower the smoothing. And this is really useful for making your slow movements feel all creamy and nice, but your faster movements are going to be twitchy. So you could flick to a player really quick, and you're not going to have so much of that floaty feel. And adjusting your precision and your response, those are pretty much the main things. Now, what's cool about easing, so let's say I believe I had my response anywhere from like 80 to almost 100. So one thing I used to like to do is just to make my micro movements a little bit more fine. I used to I used to set it like close to 100. Let's say I had it at like 90. I believe a lot of times like 80, 85, let's say. And I would have my easing I believe it was very low. I had my easing at like 2. And what easing would do is it just kind of creates this, it kind of brings out the precision a bit. So leaving from precision to response, there's a little bit of an area it gives, like a little bit of a give in the micro movements that it stretches that out, and it kind of um allows you to kind of like leave the precision smoothing, the main smoothing, a little bit lower, and you have a little bit of that stability and that creaminess in those micro movements. So yeah, I would have something about set like this. I don't remember what easing was set to. I believe it was something low like that, like 2. So that's pretty much what was my philosophy for smoothing. But in my later days, especially, this works really good with aim assist and stuff, but most of you know that I didn't play much with aim assist, so it was kind of almost pointless. It just, any smoothing in general would just sort of take me out of the game, and I realized it felt like it was helping, but overall, really from my gameplay style, it was doing nothing for me. But I highly recommend you play around with the smoothing settings and keep in mind what I described about them. So I hope that all makes sense. I know it's a little bit complex. So yeah, in my later days, let's just put all of this back down to 0. All right, motion curve. I don't have any curve. Early days, what I used to do is before the smoothing was there, when I used to be a tester, I used to do something like this where I'd create a little bit of a zone like that. And so that you could play around with that too. And what that would do is that would just kind of create this sort of slowed down zone where you would be able to have a little bit more stability in that area, and then it would bring it out, and your overall response would feel linear. But I recommend just keeping low. Oh, I did actually have a time where I had it some a curve somewhere like that. Like I believe, yeah, the preset is actually my old curve of when I was playing around with smoothing, and I did have some good experience with this, but overall, just when dealing with muscle memory and things like that, like if you're just trying to flick to a target and stuff, I remember I would over or undershoot constantly, so I ended up just going back to linear. Let's see. So none of those inverts. Okay, on my thumbsticks, let's see. Oh yeah, all the thumbsticks tuning is in the back end on Nexus. So yeah, I would go to stick curve editor. Now this section I also might make into a separate video too, but I'll include it in this video. Is this section I'm going to be describing my theory, pretty much behind what I found, what how to design a curve for what you're looking for in your gameplay style. I might go into more detail. I'm just going to kind of make this video a little bit more brief and quick. So, in a lot of my earlier gameplay videos, there was a Battlefield 2042 one that did really well. I believe that was like my highest received video, where I was doing a lot of really good, hitting a lot of really good snipes. So that video, up until about that point, I played it on pretty much, it was almost like around like 70%, like something on the where you see like the X over here. I had it like down into 70, and that was my original curve. This curve wasn't really as well received in the community when I shared it. Not a lot of people used it. They used my other curves. But this was like the curve that I, for the most part of playing on this controller, this is how I used to have my thumbstick set. And it was just so I could dial in a certain speed and than have all the rest of the work done on motion. So I was a little bit more motion dominant back in the day. So later on, what I did is I started to bring this up. So I kept it around that area. I mean, you don't really need to pay attention to the numbers too much. It wasn't like super tuned or anything, but the idea of this curve was to keep because the more things you do with it, with a curve, like if you just add something there and you do this and you add a little thing like that, and then you're like, oh, I want to go faster on the movements, and it's like when you do things like this, it throws off your predictability. There's no way anyone's that accurate that they're going to know exactly which zone they're in. So all it does is just make things unpredictable. So you don't want to have like a curve that looks all crazy and all over the place like that. You want to keep everything smooth and predictable. So what I ended up doing with my curve is so yeah, the original curve was down there and it was like that. And then when I brought it up, I kind of noticed that I had more muscle memory to it. So if you keep this dot and you just slide that straight back into that corner and kind of adjust your curve from there, it's easier for your mind to pick up on like, okay, when I'm over here, I have like this much stick deflection. If I bring it over here, it's more of like a this predictable mathematic increase. And also this you had a lot more response in your slow micro movement area, so it felt a little bit more twitchy, which kind of could be harder to control for some people, but it's also more responsive. It doesn't feel as like sluggish and floaty. So over time, I graduated to when I got good with aim labs and stuff. I graduated to a raw linear type of aim, and this is pretty much how I game on right now. Just a straight line. It's just the most predictable. It's really, really hard to get used to micro movements this way. I definitely don't recommend newer players play on a linear curve. Like, you're going to be really compromising your gameplay style. But as you get better, if you're really, really precise and you really learn how to use it, linear is like, I mean, just look at Jen Burton's gameplay. Like, he was completely dominating the uh this big esports Apex event and everything, and he plays on linear. Now the problem with linear is you got to play with lower sensitivities. There's no way you could tame a linear curve. Thumbstick extensions like I have definitely help with that, but taming a linear curve, like you could play at almost double the sensitivity when you have a curve on. So my most popular curve that everyone liked was somewhere around that area. I just dragged it back, just adjust it to your level. Don't think that what works for one person is going to work for the next. Just adjust it for what works best for you, and I suggest just keeping that line straight back, and then maybe even slowly over time as you're getting better at the thumbsticks, just slowly bring it back to linear. All right. Sorry, a little bit winded. I'm just kind of rushing through this. It's already 4:30 and I'm kind of ready for bed. So, let's see. Sensitivities, that's totally up to you. I usually play with my sensitivity on both aim down sight and hip. I played with that the same. I just kind of like the muscle memory. With me, if I played with them at different sensitivities, then I'm always just holding down the left trigger and just aiming down sight all the time. So when I have them at the same sensitivity, it makes me utilize hip aim a lot more. So I think that's pretty much it in this section, other than the way I had the buttons binded. Pretty much the main things of what I used to like to do is I used to have where I was binded to X, I used to have that as B for crouch, and I'm not even gonna bother switching that. And the jump, I had it on the left trigger or left button, so I would have that as A, and then I'll just remap everything from there. But honestly, button binding's like, that's boring. Just figure out your own whatever whatever works with you. I mean, I could go into a little bit more detail if you guys really want, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything really special about that. So yeah, I'll save it. Now's the part for global settings. So in global settings, haven't even calibrated this controller yet. Just calibrate the ranges really quick. Okay, leave it here. Calibrate the sensors. All right. Now for the fun part. So, yeah, right stick, left stick. Okay. I pretty much left stick just how it is, just because it's movement. I mean, it's not really a big deal how it is. Maybe I would put a little bit of extra effort into making sure it doesn't drift. So let's say it drifts down there. I'll just bring this up a bit. Let's see, like that. Yeah, just so it's centered. Let's see like that. Okay. Also, I want to show you guys what I'm doing right here. I'm bumping around the analog, so because there's always drift, a directional drift. So you can see I move up, it's drifting up. I move down, it's going down. So I always just make sure that's centered. So there's directional drift going this way. You can do X like that. All right, so that's about centered. And this way you can keep your inner dead zone as small as possible if you do that. But for the left stick, that's not super important for me. Let's do this with the right stick. All right, so a little bit of drift on the X. Let's bring that X in. Ooh, a little too much. Yeah, so somewhere around there. And yeah, what I'm doing is I'm kind of like brushing my finger against the stick so it holds it at a certain position. That way I could see. And I like to, I'm somebody that almost every time I'd game, even like in the middle of when I was gaming, I used to change this around because all these internal parts, they're made out of plastics and they change just a little bit with temperatures and stuff. So I used to always play around with that. I mean, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise because, I'm developing my own, a lot of people know I'm developing my own analog sensor right now. My goal is to have it that it always sits in the 0 position. So that's why this dead zone size always drove me nuts. So anyways, the inner dead zone, I'd have that set as low as I could get it without getting any drift. Sometimes I would even set it to the point that I actually would get drift. So yeah, you can see I get a little bit of drift there. So sometimes I'll leave it, yeah, somewhere around there, probably a little higher, have it there. This one is nice, it kind of holds a nice little tight dead zone for a regular analog stick. But yeah, let's just say around right there. Outer dead zone. Ooh boy. Okay, so forgot how I'd have this. So the limit. Let me see if I had the limit set like 0 on the X limit. Okay. Let's say 250. Okay, what that's doing is that's just setting, yeah, you can see how the analog now is not reaching the end anymore. So let's bring this to 200. And this is just so I can maximize, so I don't have any outer dead zone. I can maximize the full range of the stick as far as it could go. Let's say 150. Getting closer. 75. Oh yeah, that's right near the edge. So a lot of times I wouldn't try to reach the outer dead zone. I just kind of leave it around this area and then I adjust the outer dead zone from there. So let's say starting place for that one is 75. All right, so lift it up. All right. So I think that's good. And outer dead zone, I just kind of bring that in. All right. Bring it a little higher. On the Y, it's a lot more. Yeah, the X. Well, that's what's nice about Nexus, is you can have these adjustments. So, I mean, you can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but yeah, you can see, oh, actually that's setting the limit up. Let's see, I'll have it at 50. Yeah, there we go. It's a lot better. And then, yeah, I just adjust the outer dead zone just so I could get as much use out of the stick as possible without having a dead zone. Like, I have entire full range out of it, and that makes a huge difference with your right stick. Even if you're gyro dominant, that's how I recommend having that set up. All right, so the next thing, this is completely optional. Actually, I mean, unless you know you want it, I don't really recommend doing this. I've had so many different orientation offsets, but the way I used to have it is I used to have, back in the day, I had a 30-degree offset. Now, the reason I had it at that was just so you're not going at a weird off angle to do side to side. You're just going straight back and forth to do side to side movements. So that way it's just my thumb going in and out to go side to side. I wouldn't have to go to an odd angle using different joints and different muscles. The idea was just straight in and out. That's it. And then up and down. And what I did is I actually, over time, I flipped that on its head. Now I have it at minus 60. So really went all around with my aim, just trying to figure out what works best. This didn't make a huge difference. This was kind of a trade-off. If you have it at 30, that's better for tracking. If you have it at 60, that's better for response, because you can move your finger side to side way faster than you can move it back and forth. I mean, you could just see that, how much faster it is when I'm going side to side. So I've gotten pretty good at tracking, and tracking is not where my problem is. So having it set side to side so I could just do quick flicks and everything and get to where I want to do. That's how I have that set. All right, so, oh, this one is actually very important. Keep this one in mind. Let me go back to the aim. Noise level. So noise, pretty much what it is it cancels out any noise in the controller. That takes out some of your resolution. So especially if you're on a newer controller. I mean, even if you do get noise on your right stick, left stick, leave the noise on for your movement. But your right stick, set that to 0, because you're going to get, I mean, you could just see that. Let's say if I had it back to like 13, or let me see so you could see it. Let me do it to like 30 if I have my noise set there. Look at what it's doing to my micro movements. It's just jumping to certain locations, and it's pretty much just lowering the resolution of my aim. That's all it's doing. So if you could see it better, let me do it to like 70 just to exaggerate it. Look at how much my aim skips around. Like, that just takes out any sort of precision or any micro movements. So that's why you want to set this to 0. All right. So the next part, yeah, this I left it all the same. I don't give a crap about my left stick so much. So triggers, yeah, you could have this set as you want. The way I like to have it is because I didn't I don't care to have it like drive so much, or like, you know, keep so much of a distance. So I used to just keep this extremely, like, pretty much just have it set in this zone so it was as responsive as possible. But I mean, that's not really an important part. It's all just personal preference. All right, so now with the motion noise level, I used to have this set just have that set all to 0. And because I don't care if I get a little bit of noise. I mean, it happens. It's oscillating back and forth so fast. It's like you're not even gonna your display is probably not even gonna pick up the noise you see. It's just all what noise does is it does the same thing, which I hate so much, is it creates a little dead zone area. So keeping the noise to 0, that just keeps your aim just as raw as possible. So obviously the offsets are important. My controller is down, and yep, everything is gonna float right back into the center. Yeah, it's all to the center. That's from the automatic calibration. And so, I mean, I'm kind of on an elevated, flexible surface, so that's why you see some of the little bit of drift happening there. But yeah, just keep all that noise to 0. It, that is just it. it cancels out the noise and creates a dead zone within that area. Just creates a little dead zone there. So if you want it as raw as possible, turn off all noise. Just set it all to 0. All right, align wide scaling to tilt. This was a feature I requested when I was an alpha tester, and a lot of people don't know what this is. So all this is doing is, let me see if how I could explain this. So, if you do have, it's not important with my settings when I have it set at 100%. It's not important to have this set, but if you do have like a Y scale at like 50%, 75%, what happens is when you, let's say you're sitting and you're holding the controller at a little bit of an angle, what what it does normally is it's always keeping the sensitivity relative to the screen. So if you're looking side to side, let's say if your Y scaling is 50, so I'm looking side to side and it's a lot more sensitive this way than it is when I move up and down. Now if I put my controller on the side and I'm going side to side like this, now it's still relative to the screen. This way is sensitive, and this way is really slow. And to me, that just, I mean, if I'm holding my controller at an angle, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like a direct input. It kind of took me out of that muscle memory and everything. It just like it felt off, felt wrong. So I requested that feature, and I don't know why it's kind of like just thrown in the back end, and most people don't even understand what it really does. I personally think this should be default, but whatever. But I believe at least this should just be into the main menu. But whatever, just a little rant over. And yeah, I hope that if this is something you're looking for, now you understand what this actually does. So yeah, I just leave it on, but it doesn't matter. So I guess that covers all of it. If you guys have any questions, I'll try to get back to you. I have been kind of busy lately, but I'll try to get back to most that I can, especially in the early days of this video. So yeah, if you have a question, just either leave it in the comments. I might not be as responsive in the XIM forums. I don't always check, especially the settings area of the Nexus forums. So yeah, I guess that concludes this video. I think you can kind of tell I'm a little bit tired right now. I'm just hope you can appreciate that I did it. But yeah, I wish I could have showed you guys it in game and it wasn't so boring. But at least this will always be here in time, so somebody who has the patience could dive back into this video and understand exactly what I did with these settings. So, I mean, I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.